Well, yesterday was indeed quite eventful. For those of you who were watching the live stream, ultimately know what we were talking about. For those of you who didn't watch it, well, of course, Frost came out at, in the afternoon, must have been about 1 o'clock or something like that, came out and basically said that the Northern Ireland Protocol wasn't working and that we had to completely go back and renegotiate the whole full thing. To which we've said before is basically impossible. The EU does not want to redo it because, as they have said before, you negotiated this with us, you signed it, and it was ratified in the UK Parliament. So clearly, you agreed to it. You are the ones that need to implement it properly. Which, of course, and only like a couple of hours later, they turned around and said, we reject completely Frost's entire notion. And now the worrying thing, as I said on yesterday on the live stream, was that Frost has basically said that there is a possibility that they will invoke Article 16. And one of the things I have said since all this, since they talked about how the Northern Ireland Protocol is somehow really bad and unfair, even though, again, Boris was out saying how wonderful and what a fantastic deal it was. If Boris thinks it is in his political interests to completely pull and just kill the Northern Ireland Protocol completely, then he will. He will do it. He will have no hesitation. He will just go and do it. If Boris Johnson thinks that it's in his political favourability for him to just go and do that, then he will just go and clearly do that. But we're going to talk about today more of Frost's magical thinking, because this just goes to prove that even Frost's version of Brexit is completely based in fantasy. So, before we get to talking about Fantasy Island, please do remember to talk about, please talk about, but please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for all those people who do support the channel that way. And of course, please do keep on remembering to wear your masks and think about social distancing while you're out there, because the virus is indeed still out there. So, this comes from the Yorkshire Bylines, and the title is Frost's Command Plan for the Northern Ireland Protocol. Over the last few days, rumours have been rife as to the UK's plans to resolve issues surrounding the Northern Ireland Protocol. Rhetoric from Lord Frost, the UK's Brexit negotiator, has been ramping up over the recent weeks. So would the new proposal, the new, quote, command plan, be either more constructive or just more UK government sabre-rattling? At the beginning of the month, Frost described the truce between the EU and the UK and the so-called sausage war as merely a sticking plaster. And as a direct response, relations with the EU were said to be deteriorating following Frost's rather strange remarks, with the European Commission Vice President Markus Sovak warning that the EU may step up plans for legal action against the UK. The government's denial of responsibility for the consequences of Brexit is not new. Frost in particular has completely washed his hands of any of the blame and the failings of his own. Once touted the Brexit deal, that blame is now being laid firmly at the EU's door, with claims of EU inflexibility and purism. No one wanted to be left out of any EU Brexit bashing, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in the new blame game, attacking the EU of the Northern Ireland Protocol and providing a committee of ministers with a list of the issues. Not quite even the oven-ready deal that he persuaded Parliament to support, it would seem. By the second week of July, Frost was already promising answers on the Northern Ireland Protocol, even before the summer recess, accusing the EU of dodging the heart of the problem in the post-Brexit trade. And while Frost continued to insist that the protocol was the cause of all these problems, the EU just disagreed. And on a recent trip to Dublin, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the protocol was indeed the only solution to the problems caused by Brexit. And of course, prior to Wednesday's big announcement, the scene was being set for Frost taking and deviating from the Brexit deal and, quote, pumping up the volume. The expectation was that the UK would invoke Article 16 of the protocol, which allows either party to take unilateral action if the application of the protocol leads to serious economic, societal, or environmental difficulties, and even that are liable to persist. And of course, by Wednesday morning, more of the supposed details of the government's command plan were beginning to emerge. In a conversation between Boris Johnson and the Irish Prime Minister, Michael Martin, on Tuesday evening, Johnson said that the Northern Ireland Protocol was causing significant disruption. And according to a Downing Street spokesperson, Johnson said on the EU to, quote, address the serious issues that have arisen. With Brexit in Northern Ireland, sources have described the proposals as meaningful and a significant piece of work, saying that to move or to eliminate border checks represented a wholesale change of approach. It also was anticipated that alongside the plan, there would be a threat to suspend the Northern Ireland Protocol altogether. Brexit expert David Haig commented in a Twitter thread that any new thinking, or indeed the, quote, just thinking, would even be very welcome from the UK government, but added that the expectations for that were indeed incredibly low. Haig added the idea of the proposed honesty box approach at the border had basically not even been considered by other nations, perhaps because it was completely ridiculous. He even went on to point out that any mention of Article 16 would come without any warning that any measures taken are both limited and open to retaliatory measures. When the plan was finally announced on Wednesday afternoon, it brought no real surprises. Other than the government just stopping short of triggering Article 16, apparently now is not the right time to do so, according to Frost, and said that the proposals would require significant change to the Northern Ireland Protocol, a step that he said the UK would not shy away from. That significant changes is in no doubt expected to come only from the EU side of the debate, Frost added, saying that the difficulties that we have in operating the Northern Ireland Protocol are now the main obstacle to building a relationship with the EU. Many commentators and onlookers absolutely disagree with that assessment, citing Frost and Johnson as the main barriers to strong and mutually beneficial partnership between Britain and Europe. It is clear that the battle between Europe and the UK is set to continue, with the EU having the upper hand and international law on its side. The UK plan will come as no surprise to the EU, though it will likely have caused considerable irritation. The EU, like us, is used to the UK government failing to recognise the realities of Brexit, or indeed that of international trade. The government has yet again proved it doesn't even understand the workings or even the aims of the European Union. I expected the EU to give the UK government's latest proposal due consideration before they said no, and as they were bound to, because they'd have no choice, it's a completely ridiculous plan with no hopes of success. But they immediately poured cold water on the idea, and Solvak said, we will continue to engage with the UK, also on the suggestions made today. We are ready to continue to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol in the interest of the communities in Northern Ireland. However, we will not agree to a renegotiation of the protocol. When asked in the House of Lords on Monday to name the benefits of Brexit, Lord Frost replied with this: Brexit will be, quote, hugely in the interest of everybody in this country as we take forward the exciting opportunities to reform our own rules, laws, and take back control of legislation and run our country as we wish. He has proven then, as he proved again today, that his Brexit is a fantasy. This isn't a plan, command or otherwise. It's complete saber-rattling nonsense of the highest order, and the country deserves better. And I completely agree. This is, I was there yesterday on the live stream, and I was just like, I can't believe he's engaging in this nonsense, because that's what it is. It's complete nonsense. But this is, as I've said, figures into the plan of what this year is about. Is that Boris and co, and the rest of the Brexiteers, want to, at the end of this year, be able to do the whole George Bush mission accomplished side. Look how well we've done. Look how Brexit well is going. And then next year actually start to negotiate with the EU properly. Because when you may remember, just a couple of months ago, with that absolute botched Norway plan that was being discussed, Norway came out and said, yeah, the UK government basically said to us, we're not interested in talking to the EU until 2022. So I fully expect that to happen. Like I say, I think this is just playing for the crowd to say, look how tough we are being, look at all this toughness and, hard play we did. And then they can go back and then just, meekly very submit to the EU, which is what they're going to have to do. But again, as always, thank you all for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can indeed buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.